All right. Welcome to Accidental Apprentice Podcast. And this video and conversation is going to be about the truth about the amount of money you can make in the skill trades in 2024. I was inclined to make this video and have this conversation because, quite frankly, in doing my research and looking at other content creators and the stuff that's happening in the space, I realized that there is a lot of information that is really, really catchy, but no one's going into the details to figure stuff out. And I think it's going to be a little misleading. So, as I said in the past, I was an apprenticeship instructor for over 10 years. I worked with the individuals going through their apprenticeship. And this conversation came up a lot, was figuring out how much money they made, how much money they were going to make. So they get into first year trade school. Maybe they're in their first or second year, sometimes the third year of their apprenticeship. They have a bit of a sense of it, but forecasting how much they're going to make in the future, planning, financial planning, thinking with the highs and lows, because construction isn't consistent. It's not 2,000 hours a year. It's not 3,000 hours a year. It's not, you hear all the videos that you can make this your own, you can do this and that. And there are ways that you can make it your own business, I guess, down the road, kind of control your fate a little bit more. But for the vast majority, there's right now, there is probably a couple million construction workers across this country in Canada. Most of those folks are not their own businesses. They work for companies, they work for organizations, they work as subcontractors. If they're lucky, that's independent. Usually they're working for a company that is a subcontractor. So you are in more of a mode of a base work week, 36, 40 hours, some overtime, some perks here and there, maybe if you negotiated in some travel and stuff like that. So, and it all depends whether you work for a union or you're non-union. I say that not because I'm disparaging on either. I have a clear bias. I'm union, and I've been union my whole career, and I would advocate for that for anybody for lots and lots of reasons. That's a different conversation. But one of the things that really helps in this narrative is that from the union standpoint, there's kind of all the numbers are figured out. You don't have to go negotiate everything. So I'm going to walk you through a sample of kind of exactly what it is you make in a trade to give it a bit of maybe a more clear message. Like right now, we're in the end of May, popping into June. And of course, that means high school graduations. That means that, college and university kids have graduated, maybe completed, thinking about either summer employment or venturing into full-time employment. Maybe apprenticeship is right on the radar right now, and you're trying to figure this all out. How much can I make? What's the value, etc. And there's going to be another conversation we're going to have about the true cost of starting an apprenticeship. Everyone says free, earn while you learn, but there's some money you're going to need to get out the door if you want to be successful and do well in that apprenticeship and not have it end up being like a part-time job or just a job that fizzled out. So conversation for another day. Let's dig into what you make. So I kind of took the time to make this into a spreadsheet. I'll admit I did a video last night on this, and I kind of tried to do it freewheeling, and it was messy as hell and way too long. So we're going to keep this quicker to the point. So you want to know how much you can make in a trade. So the average hourly wage for a trade. Now I put it at 50. I did some homework on this. I went across the internet, looked at the different provinces. It is all over the place. It absolutely is, because it is regional specific. Like it costs more money to live in Ontario than it does, say, in Manitoba. So the rate of pay for the trades reflect that. Okay. If you want, you can go online, you can Google, average wage rates. There's lots of information out there. I would recommend going to Canada's building trades unions. Of course, again, bias, but they actually have under their apprenticeship tab, you can go look at the different trades that are in each province, and some of them actually disclose what the rates of pay are. And I would just say to you, look at the high end, understand that's the journey person. If there's a low end, most likely that's the starting apprenticeship rate. It might not clear that out. If there's just one number posted, that's probably the journey person rate. And then this is where things start to get real when you're an apprentice, because people don't share this to you. So look, let's get into this. $50 an hour, the average. Okay. I take it with a disclaimer. It can be a little more, it can be a little less, depending on trade and where you are, but we're just going to work with this number so it makes sense as we go through. Okay. Now, most trades, almost all trades on a collective agreement get some sort of vacation pay. So that means, the average is around 10%. It can be more, it can be less. Again, I'm going to say, sake of example, right? So 10%, and also easy math, let's be fair. So $55 an hour becomes the total package, or starting to become the total package. There's a lot more that goes into the package, but it becomes basically the wage. Okay. So when you see online, you see magic numbers put out that says, or over 100,000. That's great. That means you're working probably 2,000 hours a year. I'm going to tell you another secret in construction. You're probably not working 2,000 hours a year. On average, you got to work at 36 hours a week. Some areas are better at 40. They're all over the place. But if you really want to plan forward, you should work from kind of the worst case scenario, because construction also has ups and downs. You might work for 6 months, have 2 months off, work for another 3 months, and then all of a sudden you didn't work those full months, but the hours you accrued might have ended up being really high. It's all over the place. But if you think of planning, if you're going into the bank, you talk about borrowing money because you want to get a car, you're thinking about that first down payment, you're planning for a wedding, maybe, having kids. I don't know, getting a dog, like whatever it is you're planning for, you got to think about this a little bit and plan forward. But you got to work in a world where you can only base it off your best. Like if you base it off just your best years, you're not preparing for the worst case scenario. So like right now, things are really, busy. Everyone's recruiting, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of people not working right now because of things going on with interest rates and jobs waiting to break. So there's tons of money invested, but things are waiting. A reality no one's sharing. So anyhow, 2000, way too high. 1800 is based on 36 hours a week. So that becomes more realistic. And right away, it's already under six figures, which you can see why people probably don't want to put this on the internet. It's not as flashy, but this is the reality. Okay. Now, if I'm an apprentice, unfortunately, I'm not making $55 an hour. I'm making a percentage of that. Okay. And this is broken differently by every trade, but probably the easiest way to average this out is this percentage. So 55% for a first year, again, going with the law of averages. It could be 50%. It could be 60%. It could be a set rate. Again, they're all different. Please, disclaimer, we're doing this as a math scenario for you to understand it's a portion of the package. That's really, really important as a first year. Okay. And unfortunately, your percentage of your vacation is actually less too. And again, this is law of averages. Some trades will honor the full vacation pay amount that the journey person gets. Some, it's a smaller proportion. I'm just going to go with law of average on this and going to go that the vacation pay becomes a percentage of the main vacation pay. And look at, we're sticking around the same number. Okay. So 5%. So basically, you're going to make $31.76 an hour first year. Holy crap. I started as a first year apprentice at $19. I've aged myself. That's amazing to see that number. Okay. So the reality now is that if you work 1,800 hours, you'll receive $57,172. Okay. Far cry from the catchy thumbnails and stickers and stuff you're hearing out there. However, that's a pretty good wage to start a job that you actually know very little, if not nothing about. Maybe you can read a tape measure, have some basic skills. You've had a small investment to get yourself started. Again, video coming later on that. That's a great ticket. That is basically that first year's wage is almost what it would cost you to go to college or university for a few years here in Ontario and Canada. Certainly it's college a little bit less, but not much these days. And university is absolutely that number or more. So you're getting that as a pay. Now, granted, there's taxes. You're going to pay income tax. You're going to pay Ontario tax, federal tax. There's things that are going to come off this. So obviously that's not what you put in your pocket. But the reality is the base wage, what we're talking about, that's the number we're working with. Okay. That is a pretty good number. Now, the cool part is there's more to come. So there's things that happen along the way, right? Sometimes you get travel. Sometimes there's jobs that, they call it a per diem or a travel, and it's all over the place what the amounts are. Like if you're away overnight, there's what they call room and board. Sometimes they just call it a per diem. Sometimes if you're just traveling to a job site that's really far from your location, or maybe there's travel regions, that established within the collective agreements. When we're talking about union, non-union, you can negotiate some gas money, call it travel. It's all over the place. Now, for the sake of discussion, I'm going to call it $20 a day, because sometimes there's parking coverage, whatever. And that's probably one of the more low forms of coverage, is basically this $20 a day for the days worked. Now, granted, you're not going to get it every day you work. So if we think about this, quick math, and I didn't run this number, so I'll do it right now. But if we think of about 36, so 5 days a week, right? And there's 52 weeks in a year. You're probably working 50 at best. So there's 250 days. Realistically, let's say you got 125 days of travel. Okay. That's half the job, half the year you got some travel, half the year you didn't get some travel. Okay. So that's an extra $2,500. That will be reflected into your overall wage, right down here, just in case you haven't seen it, right over here. So 59,620. That's a realistic number. Now, another cool thing happens every once in a while is that you might get to work some overtime. And this is becoming more common because jobs have big investment schedules, timelines, there's things to get done. We're retrofitting our entire built environment. We're catching up on energy needs and demands, like the housing crisis. There's lots of things happening. Opportunities for overtime certainly are prevalent when the work is flowing. Okay. So as an apprentice, it's not uncommon to get overtime. Now, depending on your union, your trade, where you're working, you could be available to get double time, 2 times the rate, or 1.5 times the rate. It's all over the place on that. And honestly, it comes down to the trade. It comes down to the collective agreement, the union, all that stuff. I don't want to get into that. Well, for the law, again, averages, we're going to work with time and a half. Okay. Um, I know my particular trade still has double time, but not all trades have that. I will just work on this. Now, out of the 1,800 hours, let's say we were fortunate to get a month. So a month where I got to work some overtime. And let's say we did Saturdays and Sundays, right? So we got 16 hours overtime times four. And hopefully, if you're going into the trades, you didn't have to use calculator like I had to do. But say we picked up 64 hours of overtime for 1 month, right? All of a sudden, there's an extra $3,000. Let's be nice. Let's give you 2 months over the course of the entire year. Okay. That means 8 weekends, 8 Saturdays and Sundays, 8 Saturdays over the entire summer or a year, whatever the case may be. That's really not uncommon either. Okay. So we're going to put that number in. Now the numbers look a little more flashy, right? Now we're getting up to 65,000. Now the cool part is I really want to put this out there. This is in your pocket, right? I know you're going to pay taxes on this. I get it. But the reality is this is your bring home. As a first year apprentice, I want to point that out. Okay. This is a good wage. Okay. I know it's not $200,000 as you've seen in thumbnails, but it's a good wage. Really good wage. Okay. So anyways, shift premium is not really what this boils down to is like, are you working an off shift? Are you doing an overnight? Are you doing an afternoon? Typically work starts between 6 and 7 a.m. Some job sites will move start times based on travel. It's nice to have it so you're not going through strong traffic and heavy commuting areas. If you're in Ontario like I am, downtown Toronto, 7 a.m. is next to impossible. You're leaving 2 hours plus to get there if you're lucky. And that's straight drive time, stuck in traffic, walking on the job site really quickly. And you need to leave yourself more time. So the reality is that this is sometimes those shifts move around a little bit, but if you're really off hours overnight or whatever, those hours can be done as a premium. Now that's pretty uncommon for a lot of the first year apprentices, and so I'm not going to work that number in, but it could look like something is up to an extra $4 or $5 an hour on your rate of pay. So just give you a sense of that. If you were at 31.67, right, you get an extra, call it $4.50. Now that's going to put you up over 35, almost $36 an hour. You'll be sitting on for your rate of pay for those shift premiums. That shift premium, if I got $36 an hour, if I'm working overtime on that shift premium, yes, 1.5 times the 36, not the 31. Kind of cool, right? So again, this can grow up really quickly, but I'm going to leave that off because again, it's kind of not a common thing. So that kind of puts us at the end of the conversation to say, okay, now we're making 65,000. Not really. In the unionized sector, which is kind of cool, is you have health and welfare and pension. And now, although this doesn't go into your paycheck each week that you have your hands on, it goes into things that are worth a lot more money to you in the long run. And it's hard to get your head wrapped around this. But a lot of times, this is included in the thumbnail or the overall amount that people are citing for how much you make in a trade. Okay. Because watch, this is how this happens. So, health and welfare, $3 an hour is a pretty average amount that's given on your behalf. Now, what this does is it buys your benefits. Now, you have to understand how much benefits actually cost. And I'll give you the best analogy I can give, which is kind of my own life. So if you think about this, 1,800 hours for health and welfare, it's $5,400. Okay. So $5,400 is being contributed on your behalf. Essentially, your employer is paying it. It goes to your health and welfare plan. So you have benefits. Now, you might have to wait 3 to 6 months when you very first start a trade. And once you pat that time and you've kind of built up your benefit account. However, the second that amount has been hit based on the trade and the union you work for, you have access right away. And what I mean by access, you have the ability for the full use of the plan. And that is dental, that is vision, that is prescriptions, that is orthotics, massages. I mean, the list is huge. Okay. It is really, really big. Lots of stuff around counseling and supports for mental health. That stuff is all in your plan. It's all different by trade, but I will tell you, it is way more than what you pay for. And why I say that is just give you this example. So I have 4 people in my household, my wife, my 2 daughters, and myself. Out of the 4 of us, right, we all have access to dental plan. Okay. So over the course of the year, we have a base coverage amount. I think it's around $2,000 is where we kind of max out. So we each have $2,000 a year to get our teeth cleaned and maintained. And then there's other provisions in the plan to cover other things that arise, like cavities and stuff. And so those are different numbers. But the reality is there's a base number. So there's $8,000 at our disposal immediately for cleaning, and we use it year in, year out. So my kids are teenagers, which means for well over 10, 15 years plus that I've put in $5,400 and I have used somewhere the vicinity of 8,000 or more, depending on what they needed for dental. That's just dental. Our family also is, for a while we were 4 sets of glasses wearer. Now we're 3 sets of glasses wearer. But that's another 1,500 bucks that comes out of that just on a base principal allowance. So you can see quickly, I'm using ten to $12,000 a year of benefits, but I'm putting in 5,400. That's the beauty of a health and welfare plan, is that collectively the members put into it. Okay. So that just think you understand the value to that. I really want to put that out there because people see 5,400 bucks going somewhere that they don't want and they want to put it in their package, like the wage to you type thing. Okay. Um, but it's important to understand the value to that. And it pays itself out over time immensely. And the other thing that pays itself out immensely over time is your pension. So yes, you could probably be a financial guru, an economic genius, an investment, whiz, and you're going to make all kinds of money with your own investments. But the reality is that most average people, if they're given the $7 an hour, are probably just going to put it into their packet, put the $12,000 into their bring home, and just bump up their paycheck, essentially, in their own minds. And they'll get to it later. The reality is, the beauty of a pension is, as soon as you can start putting money into a pension, it's going to work for you better in the long run. It's been proven time and time again. That's why it's always the core of health and welfare and pension. It's always a big component of being inside of, a union for that matter. Now, if you really are that steadfast on you want to do all these extra things with your own investments, I promise you, you're going to make enough money in the trade that you can take some money and do that on your own and have that supplement your union pension. I promise you, this union pension going into the structures that exist inside of most jurisdictions, whatever this mechanism is, ends up really working out better for you in the long run than you would imagine. So I'm going to leave it there, and maybe I'll bring a financial person on to actually break down the value of these multi-employer pensions and how they all work, and why you really should put a lot more faith in that. This is a really big vehicle for you that complement for the future. So, anyways, this is where the math comes from, right? So if someone wants to start citing, we're getting back up to that 83,000, right? We're getting closer to the $100,000 sticker you see out there. But the reality is, although you get your worth, your work was worth, your value, the package, what's being paid to you is going to be 83 grand as a first year apprentice over a calendar year. However, that is getting broken up a little bit. The money in your pocket is the 65,000, and there's a benefit amount being paid on your behalf. So when you start thinking about the math going in and out, that's the reality. Now, you spend some stuff on your pension, on your health and welfare, you use some benefits up over the course of the year. It's kind of like that money doesn't come out of your pocket anymore. Do you hear what I'm saying? So it's really hard to walk through this. And I mean, if you, as I do more of the shows here ahead of us, break into more of these pieces, feel free to hit me up, whether it be the comments, messaging on socials, whatever. I'd love to have this conversation, help you understand this a bit more. If you're a brand new apprentice, even a journey person who hasn't someone walk through this, if not me, talk to someone inside of your own organization, talk to your employer, talk to a coworker that's been there for a little bit longer than you, that, maybe has their stuff together, maybe doesn't, maybe has the same questions. If you're in a union, go talk to your reps, go talk to your agents, your reps, go talk to the office. When you go to trade school, talk to your instructors. I mean, that's where I learned more about this. I'll be honest with you. I knew a bit about it, became an instructor, dug into it more because the students were asking me. And then I learned really quickly how to break this down to give you a sense of how much you can actually make in a trade. So the number is a lot different. It's not a bad number though, right? And if you really start looking around, and I'm hoping this a spreadsheet will do exactly what I'm supposed to do. But if all of a sudden I start making some changes, like, oh, I got from first year to second year apprentice, look at the number. I'm now bringing home $76,000. My package is 94,000 altogether. Everything reflectively changes. All of a sudden, I become, I don't know, maybe the third year rate is 75%. Look at, I'm at $88,000 already, right? Bring home, away we go. It all goes up, and then maybe I've got a great number. Some fourth year rates in some trades are 90%. So I'm still an apprentice. I'm clearing $100,000 a year. I'm working a total of 1,800, call it 1,800, 1,900 hours. I'm working over a calendar, not even working 2,000 hours yet, right? Which is the average salary that is based out there for like corporate and all that world. And I'm making 105,000. I got 18,000 in benefit going to me. These numbers also will go up a lot of times from apprentice to journey person too. So a lot of times, not all the time, right? If you just work on law averages, we're here, right? It's really important to understand these numbers and how they work because you're paid by hour. So this whole driver of your paycheck as an apprentice is the hours worked. There's no salary. Okay. Really, really important to break that down. Anyways, I hope that was helpful. I hope there was some insight gained out of that on what an apprentice actually makes. But the truth of the matter really boils down to this, and this is the biggest secret, is that it's what you work. You got to show up. So no one, all those packages, all those numbers, all those fringe benefits, everything sitting here, all of this, okay, You only get this when you work these. If you don't go to work, if you don't show up, if you don't learn the trade, if you don't take the direction, I mean, I get into all this. I'll stay on top of this. The guests are going to hit this up a lot. You're going to hear from their stories, how they got to where they are in their trades or jobs related to the trades. You're going to hear a just constant trend. The people that are going to come on was they had to show up, they had to put time in. Someone will share times they failed. Sometimes they'll share the complete successes, I'm sure, but we'll break into all of that. But at the end of the day, if you don't work the 1,800 hours, you're not making the 100, the 60, the 70, whatever. It doesn't matter. You need to put the hours in. And yes, there's going to be lots of opportunities for more hours, etc. But that only comes if you're actually the person showing up and doing the work. The person who shows up part-time through the week doesn't get asked to do the overtime. So that math instantly comes off what you're looking at for accounting. So at the end of the day, skill trades are awesome. Apprenticeships, becoming a journey person is an amazing vehicle for you to really get some control over how much money you potentially could make. But at the end of the day, the control factor is what you do. It's how you work. It's the time you put in, the skills you learn, the communication, the working with each other, becoming a good coworker, becoming accountable and responsible. There's a relationship here. An employer bids a job and works it on how many people are going to go to that job. And it could be X number of apprentices, X number of journey persons. And they build it off a schedule and they give a commitment that they get it done in a window of time and they're going to charge this money to do it. And the reality is if they don't hit those targets, there's penalties, there's fines. They get their money released in draws, all kinds of craziness that happens to them. And I would certainly look forward to bringing a contractor on, talk about some of this reality. It's because at the end of the day, there's a risk factor that you're going to do the thing that they need you to do. And they're banking on you able to do that. And they're bidding it accordingly. And everyone kind of has a role to play. And in that, they take into account that an apprentice is also going to learn on that job site. So they have to factor that math in. You're not showing up. Every day you're not showing up. Every day you're not there the full day. Every day you're leaving early. You book a dentist appointment during the shift instead of after the shift. Like little things like that all chip away at the goal. If the contractor is not successful in delivering on the product and the schedule, then they're going to be limited on their abilities to secure more work down the road, which fundamentally means you get less hours if you're working for that contractor, or heaven forbid, you're not working for that contractor anymore. It is a symbiotic relationship. You do have to accept that in the skill trades. And sometimes that's way overlooked. People just think, I'm an apprentice, I'm a journey person, I get $100,000, $200,000 a year. That's how it works. No, it does not work like that. It potentially can work like that, but there's a lot that goes into that. And I'm sorry to throw that shade at it because it's super fun to have the other conversation, but I don't think it's responsible coming from the skill trades, thinking about the dynamic of how the industry works, that if people aren't telling you the truth of how you actually make that money, how you can achieve those successes, and also the reality of how it cannot work out, and where the average is in the middle, which people don't like talking about because it isn't sexy and flashy. So anyways, I'm going to leave you guys there. Thank you so much for listening and watching and following the social media. I'm shocked that the traction has been so great. I really appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. Looking forward to your feedback. Looking forward to this journey with all of you. With that, have a great day. Get to work. I got to get to work. Talk to you guys later. Bye.